Welcome to the LifePro podcast, where today I have the luxury of having Claire Wheeler, who is the founder of Kid Biz Academy. Welcome to the show, Claire. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm really excited about the topic today. We're talking about teaching entrepreneurship to kids. And I have three small kids. I know you have kids. And I constantly think about ways that I can help educate them and help them improve their lives as well, and set them up for the future. So I'm really eager to talk about this subject today.
Me too. I found your podcast and I think that we very much align with our thinking. So yeah, I'm excited too. Thanks for having me on.
Great. So why don't you start out and tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and what kind of landed you here?
Yeah. So I spent the last 20 years in corporate business, and the last 7 years as sales director for a retail agency. And I've worked with some really big brands, LG, Dyson, Red Bull, heaps of big brands. And I got to I started to feel a bit itchy feet. I wanted to do something to do with kids and I wanted to do something really meaningful, but with marrying in my work experience. So I so before I did Kid Biz, we will rewind back a little bit. I started an eco-friendly play space business, and we sold play spaces and cubby houses and cardboard desks, all made of cardboard. So eco-friendly, fantastic. It went really well during the pandemic because, as you can imagine, kids are at home, they needed something to do. So during the setup of that business, my own children were really heavily involved. So they helped with the social media posts, they helped develop the prototypes, they helped test the prototypes, they gave me all these ideas for different, we'd make a rocket one week and we'd make a cubby house the next week and a circus tent the week after. So they were so heavily involved, and I saw the stark difference between their enthusiasm with setting up this business as opposed to the schoolwork that they'd been set during the pandemic when we were homeschooling. And they didn't want to do the homeschooling, the homework that they'd been set from school, but they wanted to set this business up and they were excited about it. And at night they would tell me all their ideas. And that was kind of my aha moment that, this kind of thing is perhaps missing from traditional curriculum that's in mainstream schools. And I thought I just have to take this wider, and I have to show more kids, and I have to take this and set something up. So I set up Kid Biz Academy, and I started doing workshops within the local area, and it's just blown out from there. It's been really successful, and it's been a wild ride, I can tell you, and I have not stopped.
So do people come to you to your workshop, or do you also do it virtually as well?
Yeah, well, we do. I do incursions into schooling groups, but I also do weekly workshops in a studio that I have. So all sorts of kids come to the studio. I have homeschooling kids, kids from the mainstream schooling system. I have kids with mild to severe ADHD. I have neurodiverse kids. I have just a whole wide range of kids, and they come to the workshops and we learn about how to set up our own business, and yeah,
Right.
it's really good. I've received really good feedback so far.
That's amazing. So I know, when you look back at at least my childhood and my school life, I remember learning about history and science and math and English. A lot of the stuff that I learned, I don't necessarily use on my day-to-day life. And I
Right.
think so. And I think that whether you become a doctor or a lawyer or plumber, politician, anything, you need to have that entrepreneurial sense. That being said, are kids really ready for real life after they graduate from high school, college? Um, how do you
Yeah.
feel about that? And what can we do? What can we do as parents to help them be more prepared for a real life?
Yeah. I feel like I get asked this this question a lot. It's a really great question, and I feel like schools have a very, very jam-packed curriculum already, and they do teach our kids the groundwork for obviously reading, writing, and the basics of financial literacy within maths. But I do feel like there is something missing there, especially for kids that don't want to take the traditional path, which has always been taught to us. I mean, from our generation was finish school, do really well, get a good job, work your way up, and you'll
Yeah.
succeed, right? Whereas I was never really taught if you want to do something that you're passionate about and you can achieve, you know, working for yourself. I do feel like real life prepares us for real life, right? So what I mean
Yeah.
by that is the schoolyard probably teaches us more about entrepreneurship than actually the school classroom does.
Yeah.
So you know, you'll see my own kids, and they still trade Pokemon. I can't believe Pokemon is still a thing now, but you
Yeah.
know, the trading of Pokemon cards in the schoolyard, it's teaching peer-to-peer sales tactics, negotiation, you know, communication skills, relationships, all that kind of stuff is the real life skills that you need for business later on.
Yeah.
And I find that
Yeah.
it might not be taught in the classroom, but it's certainly taught outside of the classroom. And that's, you know,
Yeah.
that.
And growing up, I loved math. Like I think I use a lot of my earlier classes in math, you know, algebra. But
Yeah,
when I got to a certain point, when I got to my senior year in high school, I took calculus. I hated it. I still have no idea why we get taught calculus. I have no idea what it gets used for,
yeah,
but I learned it and I hated it. Like that, and I think that could have been replaced with a different class. I mean, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is an application for calculus, but it's not for the masses. It might be for
yeah,
like an engineer and like or small fraction of the population, where
yeah,
entrepreneurship, I think everybody can learn from.
yeah.
So outside of entrepreneurship, is there anything else that you wish was taught in schools?
Oh, I believe there are so many life skills that we are not taught. And if your parents aren't able to teach you, then
Uh,
yes, we absolutely should learn them. Car maintenance, ironing, putting a shelf up, interview
yeah,
skills, public speaking. I mean, at my
yeah,
school, we had drama class, I guess, where you might have to stand up on stage, but we didn't
yeah,
learn how to speak public speaking, which is a lot of people's
yeah,
greatest fear, right? And
yeah,
yeah, there's so many things that I wish we'd learned in schools. And I feel for the teachers because I speak to a lot of teachers and they are so on board with this, but
right,
because they are so you know, bogged down, I guess, by the curriculum that they're
yeah,
tied to. Which I do actually, interestingly enough, have a lot of kids that come to the workshop who are high school kids who've gone through the mainstream system and who have now taken to homeschooling. So they've said, like, it just wasn't for me. I realized at high school, like you said, you know, you learned the basics early on. And
yeah,
then I'm not learning what I want to learn. And I feel like I'm inside this box, which I don't fit into. Um, and yeah, so I get a lot of high school kids, and you get the smiles on their face when they realize that, you know, this kid loves fishing and he can teach. He's got a lake, you know, he lives on a regional property and he wants
yeah,
to take fishing tours on his lake. That could be a business. That could be what he
right,
does for the rest of
right.
his life, you know, or for the next few years. Yeah, and it's just it gives me such a joy to see that.
Yeah. And you know, I had the luxury of, you know, my father was in business. So a lot of what I learned about from entrepreneurship was from my parents. But is there a right age? Is there a appropriate age for for our parents to start teaching our kids about commerce?
I think like not all kids are going to want to be entrepreneurs, but the whole point of this is to develop an entrepreneurial mindset so
Right.
that we build up out of the box thinking, creativity, resilience, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I remember, I don't know if you remember, but I remember being very young and setting up the lemonade stands and
Yeah.
washing cars and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, even very young kids, they play shop, right? And we do
Mm.
this imaginary play you know, they're the shopkeeper, and it's all from a very young age. So I think as parents, we just have to encourage it. And I have seen kids as young as 5 years old. There's a child who lives in the same town actually, and he makes jams. And he is the youngest supplier in New South Wales, and he sells the jams to restaurants, cafes, online. And he's 5. You know, it's
Yeah.
incredible. And yeah, so I think as parents, the thing that we can do is A, encourage them, but B, I always say to parents, try and do the boring tasks for the kid, so the kid doesn't get fed up with it and get a bit, you know, this is their first business. So let the kid be the creativity, and let the kid be
Right.
the CEO, and let the kid be the blue sky thinking, but you help them, you know, the parent can deal with the tax implications or the setting up the website or whatever, you know. So it's very much
Yeah.
a joint venture, but the parent can take away, you know, can make sure that the kid enjoys the process, I guess.
Yeah. And so you touched on it a little bit, but let's talk a little bit further about, the real benefits of teaching kids about commerce. It helps them in the future, gives them self-confidence? What are some of the things that it really helps them with?
So a kid developing an entrepreneurial business or you know, going into entrepreneurship enables them to think for themselves. And I think, and I might get a bit not attacked for this, but my thoughts are that in today's society, we as parents want to protect our kids, right? So we want to, naturally we do, and we want to help them, and we want to solve their problems for them, and we want to shield them from the outside world, this dangerous world.
Yeah.
This is how we are, and it's very different from the world that I was brought up in. And I feel like kids are losing the chance to make mistakes and to learn and to do things for themselves, and they can do a lot more than we give them credit for. So I feel like an entrepreneurship is a safe environment to develop all the skills that we are almost shielding them from to their detriment, really, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. So I did discuss, after I talked to you last, I talked to one of my friends, and I told him about how amazing you are and what you're learning. And he was a little bit skeptical because he was afraid that he was encouraging his kids to get into the business world and abandon school. So what do you say to parents that might be afraid of that?
Oh, I mean, I think, I mean, if your kid goes to soccer practice on a weekend, are you scared that they're going to do soccer and abandon school? No, you know, they can go
Right.
hand in hand, and each one offers different, you know, different things for the child.
Right.
But entrepreneurship gives the child a chance to work, to develop their passions. Whereas at school, because it's a one-to-many approach, they might have to study things they are not passionate about, which is great. They get to experience different things, but they might not be able to, they might not have the time to develop what they want to. And
Yeah.
this aside gives them a chance to explore their own likes and loves.
Yeah. And I know a lot of adults that can use a course in entrepreneurship. That,
Yeah.
a lot of people, a lot of people are maybe more artistic or in the medical field that don't necessarily have the same experience with entrepreneurship. So or business. So they rely on other people to help them with that. But I think that, if we get them started at a younger age, if they had learned it in school or somebody had taught them at a younger age, then they'd be more
Yeah.
poised to be able to have that entrepreneurial mindset as they grow and be more successful in life.
And that's the key, because if they do while they're young, right? So they can fail a million times. They don't have to pay
Yeah.
a mortgage and be scared they can't get the money or anything like that.
Right.
They can fail. Kids are so naturally creative, right? And they're so super curious, and they learn really fast. So by the time, if they do this when they're children, by the
Mhm.
time they're 17, 18, 19, and their peers are just starting to do this, they're streets ahead, you know, they've learned
Yeah.
the mistakes. Yeah.
So during your academy, are there certain types of businesses that you encourage them to start, or is there any guidance on that end?
We pretty much work on, so the first thing we do is write down all of the things that we love. So it could be cats, it could be dogs, it could be
Mhm.
baking, it could be jewelry, it could be anything. And then we work on how we make that into a kind of business. So, you might like dogs, you could do dog walking, you could do dog grooming, you could do dog photography, you could do dog, there's so many things. So when we
Yeah.
talk about that, and they say, yeah, I would love to do that, and then we develop it into a business idea. So yeah, it's entirely based on what they love. But I always find you either have the techie kids who are very techie
Yeah.
and crafty kids, which is very jewelry making or baking, that kind of thing. Hands-on, which is lawn mowing or house cleaning or car washing, or very hands-on kids. Or you have the outgoing kids, which might be a YouTube channel, or it might be a party entertainer. So we always end up in those four categories. So sometimes we group off and do that. But yeah,
That's
that's always.
phenomenal. Yeah, I'm very impressed with everything that you're doing to teach our kids, and very impressed with everything that you've said today. LifePro podcast is in place to really, educate people about ways that they can improve their lives, and in this case, improve the lives of their children. One question I ask everybody is, what's one thing that you want to teach the world? It does not have to be related to the topic, but curious to hear what that would be.
Oh, only one, only one. I just think that I want people to know that they can thrive in doing what they love. And the traditional mindset of having a job as the secure option is not actually that secure, because you could be let go of your job tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So if you work for yourself, it's often seen as a risky option. But if you're working for yourself, you work a lot harder, and because you want to achieve. So that's not necessarily the risky option. So I want people to kind of flip their mindset and
Yeah.
realize that the traditional way isn't the only way.
Great. And I love that. I mean, you're encouraging not only kids, but parents to open their minds to other opportunities and really set themselves up for their future. And also, in a way, a lot of things that you've said also pertain to adults as well.
Yeah.
We get wrapped up in a certain way that society tells us it has to be a certain way. And we really can choose our own path. Whether it's entrepreneurship or any other desires that we have, any goals that we have in life, we just have to set our minds to it, be open to it, and be willing to put in the work. So
Yeah.
I love everything you've said. As far as was there a certain, I know you're working on a book, and I'm
Yes.
excited to see that come to fruition. Was there a book that you've read that had a major impact on you and all the things that you've wanted to do in life?
Oh, I'm a reader, so asking me for one book is very difficult. I don't watch TV. My way of relaxing is to go to bed and read a book every single day. Um, there's I'm just trying to think of books that I would recommend. There's a good book called The Resilience Project. And I think it's an Australian book, but available worldwide, and it's about finding happiness through gratitude.
Mhm.
So that's a really good book to practice as a family. Books that I would recommend, actually, I always have a few on my desk. There's a really cool book called Barefoot Kids, which is a great entry into money and business. Similar to what I talk about, but this is a very gentle entry. So that's a great one for kids. Um, let me show you another couple, because I don't know who might be watching this, and they may find there's a book I always come back to. There's
Oh,
How
there you go.
to Raise Entrepreneurial Kids, which is by a guy called Daniel Priestley, who's he's an amazing entrepreneur. He lives in the UK, but he's from Australia, and that is an amazing book. And one more, which if you are an adult and you have gone into entrepreneurship. And the reason I'm going to pick up this one in a second is because I do get a lot of adults talk to me and say, we love following what you're doing because you put it in very simple terms. So even though my book that I'm doing at the moment will be aimed at children, of course, adults can enjoy it because it's very simple steps. But how can you go past Alex Hormozy, right? You must know
Oh yeah,
Hormozy.
I did read that book, and I do follow Alex and his wife, so I do enjoy
Yeah,
all the content that they put out. They put out a lot of content out.
no, they certainly do, and I like the way they are genuine and they just want people to understand business, which
Yes,
no jargon, which is what I want. You know, we've all sat in
right,
boardrooms, we've all sat in these business meetings where you think you don't need to use
right,
this terminology. You know,
yeah,
everyone needs to understand it, and it doesn't
right,
have to be that complicated. Yeah.
right. I love that. And so you mentioned following you. How do people go follow you?
Yep. So I have a website which is kidbizacademy.au. So KIDBIZ academy.au. The same is for my Instagram and Facebook. So Kid Biz Academy. And yeah, just follow me and I will keep updating things, working on my book at the moment, which I'm super excited to get out. It won't be yet, probably
Yeah,
next year. And I'm trying to get my online course up and running. It's just, as with everything, I keep doing workshops and it takes
yeah,
away my time from doing the
yeah.
course. I will eventually do that because I am constantly asked, you know, where can I do this? I don't live in Australia or I don't live near you and I want to do something online. And also, if anybody wants to do a Zoom workshop, then I do those as well. So
Great.
yeah.
Well, I love talking to passionate people like you. You encourage me, keep me going. Um, and I know that a lot of people are going to find a lot of value in what we talked about today. And hopefully, we can make a change and, not only parents, but kids' lives in the future and set them up for the future. So I thank
Yeah.
you for your time. I really enjoyed our discussion. I want everybody to like, follow, and share and help us spread the word. Thank you, Claire, for your time. I enjoyed it.
No worries. Thank you. See you soon.
Take care.